Good afternoon. I'm here with Jeanette Mintz. She is one of our patient companions, and I think, Jeanette, I've known you for at least 7 years. It feels like longer in the best possible way, but I want to thank you for taking some time today to chat with us. As you know, this is going to be for our Listen and Learn podcast, and so we're eager to hear more of your story, and your story is a unique one. I'm going to let you tell it. I'm not going to lead with that. I would rather just get started by asking you a few questions, and then we'll just let the conversation go from there. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Great. I guess the place to begin would be to think back to your first experience of end-of-life care, and if you could describe that, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
9 years ago, this coming April, my husband was diagnosed with ALS, but was not interested in knowing all the details. And since I'm a detail person and wanted to know what I was going to be dealing with, I went to see the neurologist on my own to find out exactly what was ahead of us, insofar as he could tell me. He told me that my husband's ALS, because of his age and his condition, was moving very fast, and he only had 6 months to live. He also said I was taking it all very well. But little did he know that I was dying inside, and the whole world changed that day. But I knew that between his office and my home was a place called Hospice of Central Ohio. And while I had very small dealing with them in Michigan and a family member, I needed help desperately and decided to stop there on my way home. I didn't have the answers to anything. So the first thing I did is just tell the receptionist I needed help. She ushered me to a very nice, comfortable room where a sweet, sweet lady came to talk to me.
Okay.
And explained the process. And I'm still trying very hard to be very stoic about the whole thing. Well, at some point, the tears did flow. And I apologized for crying. And she said, oh, no apologies here for crying. Tears are welcome here.
Oh, nice.
And it changed my whole perspective, not only on what I was doing at that time, but little did I know it would change my future as well. There were so many misunderstandings about Hospice of Central Ohio. For example, a nurse not a hospice nurse, had told me that my husband would be made to stop all medications, which was not true. Some people told me, oh, they only take cancer patients. That is not true either. Some people said, well, you have to have an exact date of their dying, and I thought, how in the world do you do that?
Exactly.
Before you could enter. Never heard of a thing called palliative care. And she proceeded to explain and answer all these questions. And I learned a lot from her that day, much more as I went along. I went home, and they sent a team of people to see my husband and make sure, of course, that he was eligible, which was obvious with his disease, and tell me what kind of things they could help me with. His bath, for example, his medications. At that time, he was taking a blood thinner, and they even would test him for his testing that needed to be done for that medication. many things that I had not understood before. After his death, I needed to feel a place where I could be needed and useful, and decided I needed to volunteer. And so everywhere I went, I asked as much as I could about an organization. But I knew in my heart that I wanted to do something to pay back all the wonderful assistance I had received from hospice. So I just knew that was where I wanted to be.
What do you remember, Jeanette, about that transition from experiencing Hospice of Central Ohio, caring for Harry, and then making the decision to be that caregiver in some way for someone else as a volunteer? What do you remember about that time in your life that helped you do that?
Well, my husband and I were very close, and we were together every day. We worked together. Some people say that's impossible, but we did it.
Good.
And so my life came to an abrupt end with his passing. He was involved in every day of my life. Mm-hmm. Everything that I was involved in, he was involved in. We played together, we worked together, we just were always together. And I remember thinking that it was like everything stopped. Mm-hmm. And that I had no reason to go on.
Sure.
And I needed a reason to have a future, because my future had ended with his life. And I'm a thinker. Mm-hmm. I like to plan things way ahead, and I look forward to things. I enjoy the process of looking forward to, and I felt like I had nothing to look forward to. Mm-hmm. That was part of my grieving process. Grieving is different for almost everybody, and it's the same for almost everybody. I know that sounds controversial or whatever, but it is different and yet the same for everyone. I have found anyway.
Were you worried or concerned about your grieving maybe hampering or getting in the way of your being able to care for someone else, or that caring for someone else who was dying would bring up feelings about the loss you had for your husband? And if so, how did you navigate that as a new volunteer, a new patient companion? Because that, I think, is something that people get concerned about. They say, "Oh, I'm not strong enough to volunteer." So how did you manage that? How do you remember that?
The only thing I can say is that just the opposite for me. That's an individual thing. It's how you look at life and death, I guess. My first experience with a very close personal death was the death of my father. And many years before many years before my husband. But I felt as though with his dying, the fear of death left me. I felt like that was his last gift to me. I was with him when he passed, and somehow he took the fear with him.
Okay.
And then with Harry, I didn't have the fear of death itself. I had the fear of loneliness or not being needed, and helping others was not frightening to me. It was the answer for me. That varies with people, but that was my outlook on it. Also, I had over years of losing my father and my mother and now my husband. learned that there's something very special about being with people in their last days. It's like being present at their birth. It's a very personal, special time that is a gift when you're allowed to share that time. And so I saw hospice as part of my healing.
Wonderful. I was just going to ask that. How did your patient companion involvement help you heal? And it sounds like that was maybe not the intention, but an unexpected and wonderful benefit.
Yeah, it really was. I tried several different, and I did do several different things for hospice as a volunteer, but my joy was found at the bedside of my patients. My very first patient was a woman in her 90s who loved to sing, and she would insist that I sing with her.
How did that go?
Well, let's put it this way. I didn't get a contract from anybody.
Good one.
but she seemed to enjoy the idea that I would sing along with her. And she was lasting far longer than she should have by all accounts. But they always had her music playing in her room. And somebody suggested that maybe if they shut the music off, she would pass on. And she did.
Okay.
They shut the music off. Family gathered together and shut her music off, and she very peacefully passed on.
Wow. So that was important to her. That was
my very first experience as a companion with, and that whole experience was very healing for me. And people would say to me, ask me questions like, where are you the happiest? And I'm the happiest when I'm with my patients, was always my answer. And I meant it sincerely, because that was not only where I found healing, but it was where I found joy, peace, a reason to get up in the morning.
Sure. And you had talked early on when you started telling your story about all the things that, in general, people who aren't involved in hospice may believe about what we do that isn't true, like we only take cancer patients, or we're going to take away someone's medications right off the bat, etc. And so as you describe all of that, it seems like it's not at all what the public would believe a hospice volunteer experience to be like. I have been, and I'm sure you have been, on the receiving end of a lot of comments that hospice is depressing and sad, and I could never do that, and I'm such a crybaby. And what you've described, and I wish our listeners could see your face, is this joy, this happiness that comes from being with folk. It's so counterintuitive. And as you imagine what brings you joy, I'm sure there were challenges as well, but how did you manage to embrace all of that as a whole experience, both what gives you joy? I'm sure there were parts of your volunteer work that have been challenging.
Well, part of that is from what that nurse said to me that very first day, that it's okay to cry.
Okay.
I later did some research and found out that it is healing. Crying is healing. And so I am somewhat of I'm a very sentimental person, and I cry many times out of sentiment rather than pain.
That's a good distinction.
Pain makes me angry.
A lot of people, sure.
But sentimental things make me cry.
Okay.
And so, yes, I cried. But I did more laughing at hospice than I ever did crying in the actual office, that is. And many times with my patients as well. Because not everyone is depressed because they're dying.
Right.
People, especially of strong faith or belief in a hereafter and of another life, and have led a life and are ready to accept this part of their life. They can be very joyful. They can be very funny. They can be very touching. All the things that we look for in human relationships, they don't go away just because someone is dying of Alzheimer's. Even though they may get confused,
Sure.
they still have those feelings. And so just to be able to share those times with them and
what were some of the hard times? What were some of, and without going into too much detail, but in general, what did you find challenging about your patient companion work?
That I couldn't do everything I wanted to do for them. That was the most frustrating part, that there was rules and regulations that would keep me from doing some of the things that I would have liked to have done.
Sure.
I also learned that nursing homes are not the horrible places I thought them to be.
Okay.
There's good people and there's not so good people that are in giving care in nursing homes. Some of them are better at it than others. Some of them, if I was in charge, I'd fire.
Oh my. Okay.
Some of them I would give a Oscar to.
Sure.
Just like the rest of the world.
Right.
There's no perfect anything. And so I don't fear going to a nursing home anymore, but I'd prefer not to.
Sure.
I'd like to stay home. Everybody would. But if I had to go to a nursing home, I'm not afraid of it. But I met an awfully lot of very, very nice nurses in nursing homes. Only one or two that I didn't care for.
Sure.
But that's life. That you find that everywhere. Find that in the grocery store.
Absolutely. Well, you've kind of touched on this, so if you don't mind, I'm just going to keep going with this theme. But how else has being a patient companion influenced you or changed you, impacted your beliefs about life? What have you learned? There's a lot of questions in there, but I think we're all heading in the same direction. What has changed about you as a result of being a patient companion with Hospice of Central Ohio?
Well, let's put it this way. Years ago, I had a friend who used to visit nursing homes just because she was such a happy-go-lucky person, and they always loved seeing her come. I thought, boy, that sounds great. I'll go. Can I go with you sometime?
Sure.
I went, and I couldn't wait to get to the door and get out.
Okay.
I wasn't ready. I hadn't lived life's experiences to the point where I saw things from a different perspective.
Right.
I loved every one of my patients. I think in the 7 years that I was a patient companion, I only had to turn down one assignment, partially because the assignments are given with much thought behind them as to who's a good volunteer for this particular patient. But this particular patient, while I had all kinds of compassion for him, he was just not a good fit for me for whatever reason.
Sure.
And so I just informed my volunteer leader, and she said, well, we'll get somebody else on it.
Okay.
Was no problem.
Fair enough.
So I think that's one of the things, too, is that they don't just go down a list of people and a list of volunteers and say, here, this, match them up that way. That there's thought put into getting the right person for the right volunteer, and vice versa.
Right.
And the right volunteer for the person. That's really the most important part. But so I'm sure that there probably are more patients out there I would have been less companion to
Sure.
than I was, because it had already been sort of filtered through. And I think volunteers need to understand that they're not going to be put into situations they're uncomfortable with. And if they find themselves in one, then all they have to do is say so, and they're out of it.
Right.
So I think that's very important. I think that's one of the things that scares people. And
I would agree. I think there's some apprehension on the part of folk who are kind of skirting the hospice volunteer experience, wondering what's going to be asked of me, what am I going to be required to do? And you're right, there are rules and regulations, and some of them, quite honestly, we might roll our eyes at, and others make wonderful sense, and we've always, I think, tried to land in the middle and explain the why behind what we're asking ourselves to do and comply with. But I think there is some hesitation about what's it going to be, and so that's reassuring, and thank you for saying that we really do pay attention to what your preferences are, to what your desires are, because we want you to be happy. We want you to be effective. If we force you in, that's not good for anybody.
Well, one example of that is that during training, we all became aware of the fact that because I'm short and older, that it probably wouldn't be a good idea to put me into a situation where I would have to help a person out of bed, for example.
Right.
Or
I remember that.
onto a commode, or do something that was physically beyond my capabilities. So it ended up that I was most comfortable working in nursing homes. There again, yes, we do take patients in nursing homes. And because there was always someone else around to do the heavy lifting, I could just relax and be a companion to that person and not be worried about whether I could lift them or move them in some way that I might hurt them.
Right.
Or myself. And so with a couple of exceptions, there were a couple of patients that I just had a one-time volunteer assignment with, that were able to get themselves up into the bathroom. I always worked in nursing homes.
Right. I remember, I have all kinds of memories. I have known you since you started volunteering, which is very special to me. You've also volunteered at our kids' grief camp.
Yes.
You have been a faculty member for new volunteer training. You have worked Light Up a Life, our annual holiday bereavement / fundraising ritual. I don't know how else to describe it, but I think it combines all of those things. What would you like to share with people about those experiences? And I do have one story about how you valiantly tried to do data entry for us, and I think you were in the chair for about 2.5 minutes and decided, I can't do this data entry. And I remember how we just locked eyes and said, it's okay, thank you for trying, and you were never asked to do data entry again after that. But I wonder if you could, any stories from some of your other volunteer assignments that mean a lot to you?
Well, I think other than being a companion, my favorite was kids camp.
Okay. Not data entry. Okay, just checking.
Yes, not data entry. But I did try different places to find out where I best fit.
Sure.
And that was wonderful to be given that opportunity. So many times when you apply for a job somewhere, you're assigned a job and you better do what you're assigned to do. But with volunteering at Hospice of Central Ohio, they were willing to let me try different things to find out where I was happiest and where I fit best.
Good.
But I think other than being a companion, the kids' camp, without going into detail, my husband had a very horrific childhood experience that he would have benefited from kids' camp very much.
Sure.
And I always sort of felt connected to him as well there.
Okay.
And was so thrilled with what they were doing for these children to help them through that time of grief. Children's grieving is a very special and very difficult, I would think, time to deal with, because their way of expressing themselves is still so limited. And one of the things those kids deal with most is not being able to talk about their feelings at home because it makes mom cry.
Right. You're right.
And so they find out that at kids camp that, first of all, they're not the only kid that's been through something terrible.
Okay.
And that other kids have feelings like theirs. And it's okay to talk about it there. And you just see them blossom in that week that they're there.
What a good word. Blossom.
Because they have kind of folded up on themselves. Like, I can't remember the name of the flower that closes up every night and opens every morning. But when they experience their loss, it's like that flower that closed up. And it's just too painful to open back again.
Right.
And to watch them open up and start sharing with each other and saying, that happened to me too.
Right.
Is beautiful. And had there been a kids camp for my husband when he was a child, it would have changed who he was.
Wow. That's saying an awful lot about the power of camp. For those who may not know what our children's grief camp is, it's a week-long day camp that's held toward the end of June, and we welcome children ages 6 to 12 who have had some sort of loss that they need some help grieving, or that they need some guidance on. And what we do is we group the children pretty much by age. And so I think, Jeanette, I remember you worked mostly with the 6-year-olds or the 5-year-olds. Tell us a little bit about what you learned about how a 5 or a 6-year-old might grieve or might approach a loss.
Well, I think the first thing is that, and I don't understand why I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know why. I wish I did. But children tend to blame themselves for every bad thing that happens. You know, Daddy died because I told him no, I wouldn't do that. Grandma died because I wouldn't give her a hug the last time we were there.
Right.
Children take on the blame for all of this stuff that happens. And it might be so far removed from the truth that it seems obvious to us as adults that those are not the things that cause them to die.
Exactly.
But to a child, it's different. So one of the things we try to do is reassure them that those things did not happen because they were bad.
Right. And how do they respond to that message? What was your experience at camp when you heard those kinds of expressions of grief from someone so young?
First of all, I just I had to restrain myself from grabbing him and hugging him.
Sure.
It's kind of frowned upon these days.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But, my heart would just ache for them.
Do you think they understood a little as the week went by that maybe it wasn't their fault, or there was...
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
good.
That 5 days, I'm sure, changed their lives, changed their whole perspective on themselves and on dying.
Okay.
And I remember one little boy who had lost his brother, and he just was closed up completely. He would only cling to his mother and cry when he came, and she promised him if he didn't like it, he didn't have to come back the next day.
Okay.
That was the only way she could get him to stay, and the second day he couldn't wait to get there.
Wow.
And I remember him at the final day telling his brother how much he loved him, and he hoped he was happy in heaven.
Aw.
And there was a big jump made from that first day to the last day.
Sure.
And it was beautiful to watch.
And how... I know you've used this word before, but the word privilege, what a privilege it is to be present to those moments. And
Yes.
for people who
Yes.
worry that they couldn't do the kind of work that you do in a hospice setting, what advice would you give them about what's maybe waiting for them on the other side of their concerns or their apprehension or their fear?
Well, first of all, there's all kinds of things you can volunteer for at hospice. If you're not cut out for visiting a nursing home, or maybe not ready yet, there's so many other things that they need. So many things like office help and help with the fundraising, and there's a gazillion things that
You're a wonderful
I wouldn't know
walking...
where to start.
You're a good recruitment poster for us, Jeanette. Thank you. I won't stop. Keep talking. Keep talking.
So don't be afraid. And once you get in there and you're volunteering, I don't know if people ever change what they do. Some of them I know have been there volunteering, doing the same job for many years.
Right.
I don't know if you change your mind after you get there and want to become a companion after you become more comfortable. Does that happen? Only you would know that, Liz, better than I. But it's such a place of wanting the right people to be with the right job.
Okay, you're right about that.
It's not like working in an office or a business somewhere where they want somebody to fill a job. They want the best person they can find to match the job that they have to do. It's sort of the reverse of hiring someone to work, I think.
Right.
But,
well, and I would agree, and I think one of the things that puts volunteer staff at the advantage is that there are so many options if the job that you think you're interested in turns out to not quite be a good fit for you. We have worked with people who have experienced just that, and they come back and they say, what else do you have? And I have almost unlimited volunteer opportunities to present to them. They're not locked in. If I apply for a paid job, that's pretty much it. It's hard for me to move around wherever I want just because this isn't working or this doesn't fit my schedule. And so I really think volunteer staff, because they're not paid, just at that level alone, have this wonderful opportunity to try and grow and explore what their skills are in a lot of different jobs. And that's a benefit in my book.
And sometimes just listening to others talk about their job will make you want to try it.
It does. It really does. Well, as I said, I've known you for 7 years, and in all of those years, you have been a member of the volunteer team. And it's been an honor to watch you try different things, but I don't think I've seen you walk away from anything except data entry. I think you've just kind of accumulated all of that, and I know that your experience with your husband, as it transitioned into your experience as being, a member of the team, has deepened your understanding of who we are and what we do. You have another relationship now with hospice, and I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what that is, what it looks like for you.
Well, I have become a hospice patient.
Mm.
Didn't expect to be here. Yes, it's like looking at the back of a mirror.
Mm.
Not so pretty from this side.
Okay.
In the sense that I struggle with not being able to see my patients.
Sure.
They're still my patients.
Understood.
I struggle with not being able to do the things for myself, let alone for others, that I could do only a few months ago. I struggle with all the same things that I saw my patients struggle with. And, of course, have a better understanding of what they were going through than I did before.
Mm.
It would be nice if I could just simply get well today and go back to being a patient companion. I think
Right.
I'd be a better one.
Okay.
I appreciate so much the help that hospice is giving me at this time to stay in my home and not. My daughter was becoming completely worn out before they got into the picture. And
bet.
they have taken over so many things that she was trying to do all of those things on her own. It was very difficult for both of us to, I was seeing her get worn out. And so anyway, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it's gotten so now it seems like every day except Saturday and Sunday, somebody from hospice is here.
Okay.
I have a nurse aide, I have a nurse, I have a doctor, I have friends from hospice, I have a social worker, I have a chaplain. Those are all part of the team that I used to be on.
And you have a companion as well.
And I do. I am now, insofar as I'm able, taking on an assignment to call people on the telephone who are just needing to have somebody to talk to.
Wonderful.
And so that's helping me as well as I hope I'll be helping now. I look forward to being able to do that and to still be considered a hospice volunteer.
Absolutely. As this very unique journey has unfolded for you from the time that Hospice of Central Ohio came in to take care of Harry and then inspired you to carry that compassion forward in your own life as a volunteer, and now you're on the receiving end again, but in a different way. How does that look and feel to you? You've changed. You've grown so much. You're not the same person that you were when your husband was dying. You're not the same person that you were when you completed the new volunteer training, and now here you are on the receiving end of services again. What does that look and feel like in terms of your hospice experience? It almost feels full circle in some ways.
Yes, yes it does. And like I say, it gives me such a broad perspective and understanding of the value of Hospice of Central Ohio and what they do. I think the only thing I haven't done is get paid for a job.
Let me see what I can do, Jeanette. If there's one part of hospice you haven't touched yet, we must make that happen.
Interested.
Okay,
Sorry.
fair enough.
Retired, very retired.
Yes, ma'am.
No, but I think it has really given me. I can't think of any of their services that I haven't used. Oh, I forgot one.
What's
when
that?
I was listing them. My massage therapist. Oh my goodness. I had sciatica for a time so bad that I could hardly walk. And she has just done wonders with that. That's, that's the difference, I think, between going to a hospital and going to hospice.
Right.
Is that it's very patient-centered. Nobody comes at you with a preconceived notion of how to fix you.
Right.
And their question is, what's the most valuable thing to you today, or what forget how that goes exactly.
Something like, what's most important to you today?
What's most important to me today? And that does change. It changes from time to time. I know right now what's most important to me is that I be able to stay on my own for as long as possible.
Yes.
And they've made that possible. When I want to be quiet, I can be quiet. Not in a hospital, you can't choose. When I want to sleep, I can sleep. When I want to eat, I can eat.
Wonderful.
And I'm not dependent on a schedule that's necessary for a big business. But here in my home, I can pretty much do what I can do. And if I don't feel quite as good today, I don't do as much today. If I'm having a good day and I want to do more, I can do more. And so I'm more in charge of my fate than I was at the hospital. They serve a purpose, but this end of life thing is in so much as possible is better done at home, I think.
Which is really the soul of hospice care from its origins, was how do we bring those services to people's homes where they can experience the care that they need, but also the familiarity that will help them have a good death. And we talk about good death, and it sounds odd at times to folks who, again, are watching from way far away and wondering who we are and what we do. But that's really our goal, is to help every one of our patients have that kind of customized experience of end of life, from the patient herself to the family members to anyone who's orbiting around that person, so that death can be as good as it possibly can be, as peaceful as it can be. And so home-centered is where we got our start, and now we expand, and as you know, and we talk about, it's any place that the patient calls home. So nursing homes, assisted living facilities, if someone was under a bridge and that was his home, we would go there. And so it's that kind of responsiveness. And
I'm glad you haven't assigned that one to me.
You're welcome. So far, I'm not aware that we have anyone in that circumstance. But as you know, we are celebrating next year 35 years of Hospice of Central Ohio, caring for people. And you have been a part of that 35 years for 7 of those. And I wonder, as we wrap up this part of our conversation, if there's anything that you'd like to reflect on or add, because we are celebrating. I wish I had data for you right now today of how many patients we've served in those 35 years, but we're getting there. I promise we'll have that.
All I know is it's been somewhere around 300 ever since I've been there.
Oh, I mean total. For 35 years, how many total patients would be more than 300, certainly?
I know, a year, I meant.
It's about that,
7 years.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. Right. Some for just a couple days, and some for a couple years.
Right.
And that's the thing, too, that there isn't any particular time span. it's judged case by case, situation by situation. Some people wait too long to call hospice in.
Right.
Because they think they have to actually be in active dying before they're called.
That's correct.
And they lose so many benefits that they could have been receiving for a long time. And as you know, it is, there are government regulations that hospice has to follow. That is their only, how shall I put it? The only thing that stops them from sometimes doing what they would like to do emotionally.
Right.
But they have a foundation then that picks up a lot of stuff. That I had a patient, for example, that needed particular food, and that the foundation provided that food for.
I remember that.
So there's another part of Hospice of Central Ohio that people forget about, and that's the foundation that raises money to do extra, or I still say we don't turn no one away because they can't pay for it or don't fit into the government regulations. Nobody is turned away, and that's because of the foundation.
Right.
That we can afford to do that.
Right.
And they don't pester you, but they sure do a lot of good.
Lots of invitations. Well, thank you for taking some time to share your thoughts. I could keep listening. I know you have stories, and maybe we'll do a part 2 on this. But as we approach our 35th year, I just want to say thank you for being part of those 35 years in all the things that you've done and all of the things that you've tried. It has made a difference, and I hope that you feel that. I hope that you know when you go to sleep at night that you have touched lives for the better. And that's what we're here to help facilitate, not just in volunteer services, but throughout our organization. So thank you, Jeanette, for doing that.
And thank Hospice for being there. They have made a big change in my life as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.